What's up, guys? The Senate passed the government spending bill and it was without Joe Manchin's permitting the deal. That is right. We had heard from Joe Manchin over the weekend. They were calling him out. Democrats are very upset at him because he passed the Inflation Reduction Act, which was the reconciliation bill with no stimulus provisions. They literally stripped out all the stimulus provisions because Joe Manchin said he could not get on board. And then when he finally did pass it, because he made a side deal with Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer to get some additional energy permitting that he wanted to stay alone and to benefit them only. Republicans were happy that he was not promoting Democratic agenda items in the reconciliation bill, and when he flip-flopped his stance from not supporting it to then supporting it at the last minute, Republicans are now furious with him as well. So let's go ahead and dive right in. The Senate advanced its budget bill last night after Senator Joe Manchin abandoned his domestic energy permitting plan. His bill was dropped from the budget in order to avert a government shutdown. People weren't voting on it. Manchin's plans could have greenlit a pipeline in West Virginia, but critics said it could have also pushed the US faster toward green energy and jeopardized energy independence. What happens when this bill makes its way over to the House? Texas Congressman Jody Arrington said, "Well, I hope Republicans will reject it. I think Manchin first of all outsmarted himself in the negotiations with his colleagues and probably put too much confidence in Chuck Schumer. But in terms of Republicans and supporting a CR that adds more spending, the first thing we've got to do is stop the spending that has ignited this inflation. Then you've got to look at what they're spending on, what their priorities are, how they didn't get monkeypox and COVID, which were on the list from Joe Biden, but they are funding the FBI and State Department. Remember, Ukraine's last $40 billion funding went to the State Department. And then you've got monies in there for energy assistance and nothing to get at the underlying problem with this whole government assault by this administration against the fossil fuels industry. There's nothing about supply chain. There's nothing to do with the drug epidemic we are facing. And there's nothing about the root cause of that drug epidemic, which is the flood of drugs coming over our open borders, right? So for all those reasons, I hope Republicans act like Republicans and reject it. For your information, Jory wrote, "If we fail to prioritize fiscal reforms and continue politics as usual, Congress will eventually bankrupt the greatest country in human history." He said, "The Democrats under this president and single-party rule have spent almost $5 trillion over the last 2 years in CBO projects. And I think it's a conservative projection that will add $16 trillion to the national debt, half of which is interest payments. As interest rates go up, we will be paying more on interest just to service the debt than all of national defense in less than 10 years. So to say this is an unsustainable path is an understatement. Republicans have a historic opportunity. I think the windows are closing, the debt crisis looms large on the horizon, and we've got to demonstrate to ourselves, to our all-party voters and voting base, that we can restore fiscal responsibility and rein in the spending, enforced budget controls. The 10-year spending cap has expired and there are no guardrails on spending going forward. These are the things that Republicans have to prioritize, or we will find ourselves in a crisis, far worse than COVID, where we can't bring enough money or borrow enough money to get out of the crisis. But hey guys, he's got a president who just with the stroke of a pen decided to give away $500 billion for a student loan handout. Even if Congress gets religion on spending, the president has the ability, apparently, to just continue to do things like this. So how does he rein that in? John claimed, "Well, I guess on the other side, fortunately, the last line of defense has been a newly appointed court. The federal judiciary has turned over at least half of them under the Trump administration. And so far, I am very pleased with their decisions. And I think this could be another decision where they slap President Biden's hands for overreaching and doing something that was unconstitutional, which is erasing an asset on our books and making it a liability just with the stroke of the pen. So I don't think that's going to play out. Fortunately, that's a disaster for sure, but lo, we can't stop the spinning on day one. The Democrats have obsessed for the last 2 years over January the 6th and how they can tax the American people out of competitiveness and spend us into oblivion. It went from about $3.5 trillion in the Build Back Broke to have $1 trillion, so Republicans can add a minimum to stop the spin, but then I think there's a whole lot more we've got to do to rein this out. There you have it. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Are they going to be getting this done in the Senate? Are we going to be seeing a government shutdown? You can do executive actions. They might get challenged. But what if he does it correctly through reallocation and it is deemed ethical and lawful? Could we potentially see more stimulus provisions through executive actions? I will keep you up to date here on the channel. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will catch you in the next one.